On this episode of Resilient Business, I talk with a panel of 4 people that make up the leadership of the International Holistic Health Alliance, or IHHA. I've been working with these folks for a number of years now, and they're really a knowledgeable and progressive group. The cool thing about these guys is that they have created their own accredited, certified naturopathic doctor program that they're offering to anyone who wants to disrupt conventional healthcare by getting back to root cause analysis and using natural methods like nutrition, herbs, and mind-body balance. So if that's you, stay tuned. If you like what you see on Resilient Business, please like, comment, and subscribe. And please share this episode with anyone who you think would find value in it. Here's my discussion with IHHA. I hope you enjoy.
Welcome, Joe. We're super excited to have you, or you have us. We're super excited you're having us.
Yeah, thank you guys for inviting me into your meeting here. It's been a long time coming, and so I wanted to put this together for a couple of different reasons. Several of you guys are using Pulse PEMF in your practices, and so I want to hear about that. You have a program that you all have put together over a number of years, and now it's going gangbusters with the IHHA. So I want to hear about that. But first, I think we should maybe just have a panel discussion, and one person can start here just talking about how you guys practice, because I know your practices are, somewhat similar to each other. And so if somebody wants to just give an outline to how you guys practice, what you guys focus on, the types of patients and clients that you might see, that kind of thing, we can get started there. So Dr. Essen or Starla, would you want to start there?
Go ahead, Starla.
Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, one thing to premise this whole thing about is, as all 3 of us, Tracy, myself, and Starla, all use testing devices called electrodermal screening or meridian stress analysis. There's a number of different names for it. What we're capable of then doing is customizing the software to look for things that are beneficial for our patients. Now, in that circumstance, I have in my software customization lifestyle as a list of things that aren't supplemental, but rather than things that people can do from a therapy standpoint that would then benefit their health. And of course, Pulse PEMF is one of those lifestyle habits or the lifestyle inclusions that people could have. And so when that does come up with the patient, hey, you could do some Pulse, then there's a customized list that Tracy helped me make that actually determines here's the number of times per week, here's the number of weeks you should do it, here's the 2 different settings that we would have in terms of the power and the rate of the pulse, to then say, here's a very specific starter for how you would approach the PMF. Well, then I'll talk to people about it when I test on them, and then I'll send them back for a little sample, a little 5 minutes, so that they can experience how that feels. And then, at that point say, well, I'm going to assign you this therapy. And then they book out, they schedule it up, they come in, and then we're going to do that pulse on them, as according to the testing. And that seems to have been working quite well. We've had a lot of people recover from physical injury and pain, myself included. We're working with some autoimmune patients. We're working with some cancer patients who are receiving huge benefits just simply by, and what I tell people is I say, we're filling in the potholes. All the different diseased and damaged tissues of your body are lacking energy. So if we were to look at a straight line being 100%, it's the potholes is where their problems are. Well, we fill up the potholes with the pulse, and that seems to do whatever version of self-regulation the body needs to do its own healing process. And I think that's fairly common experience for everybody here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really important to have a disclaimer there, not giving medical advice, not, making claims of any sort, but the technology, the PEMF, is able to provide energy to the person to help the body be able to do its own self-regulating, I think was your word. And whether that be, regeneration, healing, resting, recovering, it could be really anything the body tries to do on its own and just has those potholes of energy that need to be filled up. And now the body can just take over and do all those amazing things that it's been designed to do. So awesome. Anybody want to add anything to that as far as, a general sort of overview of how you guys use Pulse in your practice? or any specifics?
I think
I ju-
Starless had it the longest out of the three of us, right? Maybe you can start and then I'll
Yeah.
kind of chime in a little bit on what I added.
Yeah, I've been doing, this testing for, I don't know, going on 15 years. And I felt like clients were better, like, yes, we would find Lyme disease and that's why they have this pain or inflammation, but it was taking them forever to feel results, taking 5 drops twice a day or whatever. And so I was like, what can I do to help them, these people who are coming in here with all this pain? And so I was at a natural health conference probably 10 or 12 years ago. And I had a friend with me who had just had back surgery and she was in so much pain, like so much pain. She could hardly walk. And so we see this sign, pain-free in 15 minutes. And so I'm like, go try that out. And so she sits down and in 15 minutes, she got up and she was like, it's gone. Like the pain is completely gone. And I was like, oh my gosh. So my mom had the idea. I come back and I'm talking to my mom about it. I'm like, what should we do? Like, I really want to get this, but it's a lot of money. And so she said, let's get a list of people who owns these machines. So we got a list from the company of 10 Pulse clients. And so I called 5 and mom called 5. And we're like, okay, if there's even one person who's like, no, it didn't do what I wanted, or it wasn't as great as they said, we're not going to do
Wow.
it. And so I called 5, mom called 5, and every one of them was like, yep, they're amazing. They're great. You're going to want a second one. So within like 3 months, I bought a second machine. It was incredible.
Yeah.
That is incredible. I
Yeah.
love that story. I called 5 and mom called 5. I love
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and my experience was actually personal to begin with, because Starla had been talking to me about adding Pulse to my clinic for a good 2 years, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'll get to it, I'll get to it. And then I tripped over my dog gate and I thought I broke my hip. I was in a walker. And I go into the ER and they do all their things. And then they send me into an orthopedic. And within 10 minutes, not even touching me, they said, you need narcotics, you need an MRI, you need physical therapy, and you need muscle relaxers and pain meds, whatever. And I hobbled out of there in my little walker. I'm like, Starla, who do you know that has PEMF in my area? And so unbeknownst to me, there was somebody in my city, and she let me rent it for a week. I needed 2 1-hour treatments in the little tiny horse unit that I was at home, and I was out of that walker. And so I called her and I said, okay, how do I go about getting it? I need to add it. Obviously, I put the cart before the horse, for my horse analogies, Ovid. But because I didn't even have a storefront yet. So I bought the PEMF and I'm like, oh, shoot, I don't want clients coming to my house. So then we ended up, renting or leasing a space inside a chiropractic office, and it blew up. So within 6 months, I moved into the location that I'm in now. So we absolutely love PEMF. We have tons of stories. I think my favorite story is a gentleman that was diabetic. He had no use of his right hand for over 6 months. And in 10 minutes of being on the PEMF, he could open and close his right hand. So, and that's just one of many, many, many stories that we have. So,
Yeah. Yeah. We love our stories, and I've been at this for 7.5 years, and I still hear the stories, and a lot of them, a lot of the old stories of pain and those types of things, kind of the musculoskeletal issues and the chronic aches and pains, things like that, have almost become, I don't want to say, I mean, they've become commonplace. And that's a little bit strange for me, just because I need to remember how amazing it is and not just sort of respond like, oh, well, that's pretty typical. I don't want to ever sort of downplay somebody's amazing story, especially if it's pain that they've just resolved, in their life. That's probably one of the biggest things you can do in life, is resolve chronic pain, from a health and wellness, standpoint. And so I never want to diminish that in any way. But I literally have to remind myself how amazing it is sometimes. If it's not some completely crazy, extreme new story that I've never heard before, which is ridiculous. But
Yeah.
it just goes to the fact that, and I tell people this all the time, is that, and you guys all know, I talk nonstop about PMF and about Pulse, and I do podcasts and I do interviews and I write articles and everything else. It really seems like I'm a huge PMF freak. Like I'm bragging on it constantly. Well, I also have to let people know that although it seems like I'm bragging on the technology all the time, really what I'm bragging on more is that the body's ability to heal itself and adapt is sometimes only inches away from having the right amount and the right type of energy behind it. And really, all PMF, all Pulse does is provide that energy to an amazing sort of mechanism, creation, environment that can do all of these amazing things. And so, support, not magic, not, any of those things. So, but we love our stories. Does anyone have any other stories to share?
I
I could,
100.
I could use my
I
phone.
I do actually.
Oh, you
All
really?
right.
So every time I go and I speak at one of those clinics with Tracy, with Starla, always the pulse comes with them. So it's next to me to steal the thunder from my presentation. Instead of people listening to me, they're just looking that way, waiting for the person to finish, and they're next. They're next. And it's amazing. It adds the energy to the whole room. And we've noticed it in our also conference. People on that corner happy using it, seeing the results on the spot. So that's
That's fantastic. We love to hear that. And yeah, I think there is some truth to that the energy kind of seeps out from the corner of where the pulse setup is. And if you're speaking, you can always use some more energy, right? Just sort of bouncing off of you. So that's great. Thank you for that feedback, Doc. Appreciate that.
Well, Joe, one of the things that at our Nashville conference, and you were there, and you and I were talking about how I had the rings as an attachment, but I had generally been using just the chair and the sort of square as a where the calves are on a footrest. But you gave me the idea of concentrating it by only just using the rings by themselves, stacking them up and having them kind of go through the tissue. Um,
Uh-oh.
Spectacular from there. Gives me some trouble if I'm at the wrong angle. And since I switched over to, in other words, having a broad general thing with the larger applicators, versus the concentrated ones, it's worked amazingly well.
Yeah, thank you. You cut out for a second there, Doc.
Yeah.
So I think you were saying that you were utilizing the square pad for your calves and lower legs at one point,
Right.
but then, we gave you a tip and trick where you can use the smaller ring accessories to concentrate into that small area and just get more focus into that area. And that's sort of been a game changer for you. Is that?
And from patients too, we're able to really focus the attention just on a smaller area. It's made a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. I always tell people if you're trying to work on your elbow, don't lay on the bed. Just put something small on your elbow. Yeah. So yeah, the smallest accessory for the job is kind of a great rule of thumb. So appreciate that. Anybody else? We love stories.
Okay, I'll tell you my favorite one. I
All
had
right,
this guy
please.
come in. This guy comes in, and normally, like, I know everybody in the town, and this guy, I don't know him. So he comes in, and I'm like, well, how did you hear about me? And he said, the surgeon. And I was like, what? So he tore his rotator cuff, needed surgery, and he said, I'm not doing it. I've heard lots of friends do it, didn't go well. So he said to the surgeon, I'm not doing that. What else do you have? Well, my sister had broke her elbow and told him about me apparently. And so he's like, well, I heard about this lady down the road. And so the surgeon sent this guy to me. So his range of motion was like this, like he could barely lift up his arm. And so I'm like, okay, we have to go low and slow. That's what they recommend on these kinds of things. And so I gave him a good package deal. And like, it was like a week or two later, he comes in and he's like, Starla, I just washed my hair. And he's like doing this. And I'm like, what? Like
Yeah,
within less than 2 weeks, he was good.
that is
That's
Didn't he
that
go
impressive.
is
back? You had a
awesome.
before and after, right? Didn't he do an MRI or something? And the
He had an
surgeon.
MRI. Yeah. A before and after. Yeah. Yeah. It was like completely healed.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
heard that a lot. I mean, we've even been at trade shows or conferences in the past where one I can remember, this guy from another one of the exhibits. I think he was selling um, not fish oil, but coconut oil supplements, for omega-3 supplements from coconut oil. And he came over, he was telling us about his product and stuff, but he also was a hockey coach. And he said that he had been checked into the boards, and he was an older guy. He was in his mid 60s, I would say. And I could say that because he's still older than me. And so he had been checked into the boards, and he could barely lift his arm up. And he comes over to the Pulse booth, and of course he saw people leaving the Pulse booth. He had some idea of what it might be about, so he came over. He said, "Do you think this will help?" We put some paddles or rings on his shoulder for a while, and he left, and he came back, and like you just said, Starla, he's putting his arm all the
Yeah.
way up in the air. Well,
Yeah.
next thing we know, he left for a few minutes, and he comes back with like armfuls of the supplements, and he's like, "I want you guys to have all of this."
Aw,
Yeah.
how
And
That's
he must
cool.
awesome.
have given us a
How
two
cool.
year supply.
Oh my God, how grateful he was.
So
Yeah, well,
yeah,
it changed his life. Yeah.
totally,
Ah.
totally. But yeah, it's great, and to be in business like I am with something that sort of works as promoted and gets
Yeah.
results as promoted,
Mhm.
um, it just lends that authenticity to it where, whenever you're in business, whenever you're in sales, you want everything you're doing, most people anyway, want everything they're doing to be authentic. They
Yeah.
want it to come from within,
Yeah.
passionately. And with this, one of the reasons why I say, the only reason I'll ever leave this place is if they lock me out of the company. Um, and so, just because it's a way to be in business and to have that authenticity. And you guys all feel that in your practices with what you're doing as well, which I can feel, just by being around y'all. And that's hugely important.
It's not always just pain and inflammation though, too. I mean, I know that's kind of like, the majority of what people come in for. But I would say that some of the people that get the greatest results are those that are having trouble sleeping. They get the best night's sleep their first time. Like that is the number one thing people always say. It's, oh my God, I had the best night's sleep. And then I did have one gal that when she came in, she called herself having long haul COVID. We
Mhm.
tested her, she had a mycobacterium, but um, so she could not talk. Like she was barely above a whisper and she was hacking, 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 hacking. And she was on the PEMF for an hour. I finished up her results, came back and talked to her, and she was talking in her normal voice. And I said, "Do you hear yourself?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah." She's like, within 5 minutes, I stopped coughing being on the PEMF. So, and that was her first session. Like it changed her life in one session. So it's not just pain and inflammation. Like Jeff said earlier, it goes where the body has the lowest voltage and where it needs those electrons. So it's pretty
Yep.
powerful stuff.
Yep. Yeah, totally. I always tell people that you shouldn't only think of it like you think of an aspirin. Like I
Yeah.
I have pain or I have some issue right now that I need to be relieved of. That's one thing. And it's great for that, as we've shared and as everybody has seen and knows and experienced for years and decades, even with PMF. But it's an awesome vitamin. It is, in my opinion and in my non-medical terminology, to me, it's like an electrical vitamin. It's like electrical nutrition. And, without PEMF in your life as a matter of routine, even not just when something's wrong, but as a matter of lifestyle, over the long term, you'll do nothing but good for yourself. Just like, if you have good nutrition over the long term, which I'm convinced that PEMF is a form of nutrition.
Agreed. Oh,
So
love it.
awesome. Well, I appreciate all the stories, you guys. I'm really curious to hear a little bit more about the IHHA program. And so I just heard briefly about it when I was at your annual meeting. But if somebody wanted to give an overview of that, if somebody's watching this recording and they're interested in looking into that, why would someone look into that? What does it involve? And what are you trying to accomplish with that program?
Sure. Yeah, as I'm the president of the organization, and I'm one of the lead instructor. I'll give you a brief overview. Well, what we recognize in the market is that there was a lack of proper and available naturopathic training. And naturopathic, for those who don't know, is an overall encompassing natural medicine practice that isn't limited by which version of therapy or evaluation you're providing. It's more of a philosophy of treatment, treating the whole person, looking for the toxins and eliminating those toxins to tap into the body's innate healing mechanisms. And so we recognize the need for this. And here's the four of us just kind of brainstorming, and we end up coming up with this format of providing naturopathic education online. Of course, that's the best way to do things nowadays. We came up with a set of 9 classes. We start off with the I'm the instructor for that, looking at the body's electrical systems. Now, of course, PEMF interfaces with all of that electrical grid work that we have, especially the tensegrity aspect of our connective tissue and how it mobilizes energy throughout the body. We then have the second course, Pamela, our instructor for that, I think is going to specifically mention the PEMF to the students, saying here's a therapy device to work with, how you can apply your test results. Here's one of your test results. Here's how you apply it. We then have, of course, nutrition, herbs, essential oils, homeopathy, and then we do a business course. And in the business course too, we're going to mention that as a mechanism of how you can operate a clinic, the PEMF would be a great installation within that clinic to provide a routine flow of patients in through the office, on a day-to-day basis. And then we offer then what nobody else has ever done in a naturopathic course is to provide a specialization where the student is going to choose nutrition, herbs, oils, or homeopathy as the specialization. Then they're going to write a thesis about that and say, I'm going to come up with a thesis saying this particular aspect of health is benefited by this particular specialization in this particular way. And then they're going to go do a thesis paper. They're going to do presentations. They're going to present before the board. And then they're naturopaths. And so these 9 courses that we do are designed to kind of put the student into a place where they understand the basics of how to evaluate, and then how to operate a business, and then how to do the therapy. And Pulse is going to be right in there with the therapies that we recommend to our students, because what we as practitioners want to do is provide our students with the best possible connections. We want people in our program to, just day number 1, they open the door and they've already got the best available. Our opinions and our experience with Pulse, we want them to have a Pulse in their office.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. That's a great overview. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
Just as Jeff mentioned, we're giving them a great degree, great education, but we need to give them tools to use in their practice, evidence-based research. And the nice thing about Pulse is, with what we do, we fix the root cause of any disease, and it takes a while. But when they use and integrate Pulse into their practice, they see results on the spot, and that motivates their patients and clients to come back and to continue the protocol they're doing. So I think it will add to their practices.
I think
Yeah, I appreciate.
Also,
Oh, go ahead, Starla.
No, go ahead,
I was
Tracy.
just gonna say,
No,
I'll
Starla.
go.
Starla.
One other thing is we're accredited by the ANMA board, which is huge. Dr. Essen and Abdel went through a lot of work to get us board certified. So when people, graduate, they're naturopaths but board certified, but also I personally have taken courses over the years. You know, I've probably spent $5,000 on this course and $5,000 on this course. And when you're done, yes, I got some education, but it was just like this little certificate that you print off, you know, like there was nothing official about it. And like I couldn't open up accounts with these big companies because I wasn't an ND, for example. So as a practitioner, I was like, we need something like this. And so that's kind of, you know, part of what we created here.
And I think where I was going to add on to that is, you know, I did the same thing, had the different certifications, and always felt like I needed to add more certifications, because I didn't feel confident enough in what I was doing. And I think, you know, pairing some of our students eventually with other practitioners is going to be the goal, so that they can really feel that they have the support that they need, that they're not alone in their endeavors. Starla was and is continues to be one of my greatest mentors, and I would not be able to do what I do without her. And I think we want our students to have that same feeling as they go out and start their own practices. And I think that business in a box, you know, that's not the name of it, but similar to it, is to help people. You know, for me, when I got done with all the certifications, is like, well, great. Now, how do you run a business? Right. And so I don't think there's any school out there, at least that not that I'm aware of, that has that aspect in it. And I am just really proud of what our organization has accomplished to get this up and running, and getting some, because let's face it, we need more practitioners to be able to help the world, to help our communities. It's just
And Tracy, the reason we need all these students is because I eventually need to retire.
You're never
ask,
retiring. We know you.
Nope.
I was going to ask you guys too, because, you know, on as we kind of wrap up here, maybe somebody can address this as you peruse social media. And, you know, I'm out and about in various networks and environments, different types of practitioners and things like that, from biohacking to, you know, pro sports, let's just say, and everybody in between. Um, a lot of health coaches out there, a lot of health coaches. And I've seen a fair amount of functional medicine programs also. So at first glance, just as a layman here, I'm thinking either one of those population groups, people looking to become one of those things, categories, might be a candidate for your program, or to at least talk about it. Can someone put it in the context of the broader sort of wellness community, for maybe spectrum wise, from health coaches to, you know, however you want to lay out that spectrum, and where you guys would fall, and sort of why someone would look at this program if they might already be going down or considering one of those two other paths?
Well, as the naturopath of the group, let me address your question. A big part of this is philosophy, meaning that literally as a medical practice, naturopathy was, you know, do no harm, treat the whole person, look for the toxin and remove that toxin, and believe in the body's ability to heal itself if you do those three things and you do them right. Now, there used to be the Hippocratic Oath. I don't know if you know this, but medical doctors used to take the Hippocratic Oath, and the first part of that was first do no harm. They don't take that oath anymore because everything they do by definition does harm. And so realistically speaking, this is a mindset. You have to literally think backwards from, I'm not a symptom treater, I'm a cause reliever. In other words, you have to go backwards from somebody's symptoms, work your way all the way back to the origin and core of it, and treat that whole person, realizing. And we had a great Q&A session last Monday, just a fantastic Q&A between Abdel and I. And one of the things that came up, we had questions come up about disease. And we can answer from the physiological metabolic point of view, but just as important is the emotional person. We're treating the emotional body, the spiritual body, even sometimes. So to the point where then that becomes the overall mindset of the practitioner. I wouldn't start approaching in coaching or, you know, in some of these other things. There you're so much more involved in the actual just physical, provable, measurable things, but you're not really looking at the whole person as much. The other, you know, big part of, you know, the whole process of naturopathy versus those is we're much more on the idea that we look at the body's disease processes and we're more official. I mean, to put it in these terms, is we can order blood tests, we can order different kinds of labs looking for particular things and very specific things. We can get accounts with just about any supplement company out there. So we can actually get to the point where we can't use the word diagnosis, but we can take evaluation to the nth degree and really be able to boil things down. And we're, able to attend conferences that are top level people talking very complex terminology. And sorry, a coach isn't going to get in there. That's that person who's, if the person that has a glass ceiling to their practice wants to come and look at a naturopathic degree.
The other
Got it.
thing we do is that, from a naturopath standpoint, yes, we have tools like biofeedback equipment in our office to be able to help us, uncover some of these things. But, at the end of the day, if that was taken away ever, we can look at the hair, the tongue, the nails, the eyes, and we can triangulate and say, okay, we know what's going on based off of, this particular thing. And that's where, our students are going to be able to get the benefit of all of that training.
And I think just the level of education really quickly, like I've been doing this over a decade and I feel like I'm fairly smart, but when I started watching Jeff's videos, I was like, oh my goodness, it was so in depth. It's like, I am a health coach. I've taken all those classes, all those courses. This is like next level, really, really, really in depth as to how the body works and just all the different layers to it. It's way more advanced.
Awesome. Very cool. Thanks for all that feedback. And so if somebody is interested in checking out the IHHA program, what's the best way to do that as we're wrapping up here?
Yep, they would just go to myihha.org and then click on courses.
And call
Okay.
Tracy.
And call Tracy.
And call Tracy.
Tracy
Excellent.
at ihhha.org.
Okay. Well, awesome. So yeah, we'll put that in the notes here. Does anyone have any parting words that you'd all would like to impart?
I think Joe, you need a compliment. Joe, and for those of you who don't know Joe, you need to understand how dedicated he is, about how much work he puts into this. He is a salesperson for a company's product, but he is much more than that. He's somebody who really genuinely cares about the people he works with. He wants to see other people do well. I think that for people watching this, if you haven't yet met Joe, you need to. And I think that all of us are so happy to be in this close relationship with Joe. We want to go to every conference that Joe's at just so we can hang out with Joe. So I think you, Joe, deserve a lot of credit for the effort that you're putting forth in all of this.
Oh, well,
And how much you
so
respond very quickly to any of our questions when we have, maybe difficult cases. We're like, Joe, and you could have easily been like, yeah, go ask support, but Joe is right there. So we appreciate that about you, Joe.
Oh, well, I appreciate you guys totally. And we love what we do over here. And we got the whole family involved. So yeah, whatever you guys need, just let us know. And yeah, we love working with y'all. But this has been awesome, you guys. And I feel like we should do this, a couple times a year just to check in. And if that's possible. And maybe to your point, maybe next time we can do it at an actual event. So
Love
we're
it.
all physically in the same spot. That would be really cool. But yeah, appreciate everything, you guys. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.